Hey, Catherine, it's so good to see you today.
Hi, yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, I absolutely wanted to talk to you around sales development. You have tremendous experience in sales leadership around development of markets. So let's maybe start with the first thing. Who's Catherine and why are you the right person to talk about sales development?
Well, who is Catherine? I am someone who kind of grew throughout the sales organization, right? Landed
Mhm.
into sales by chance, and started as an SDR. I've done inside sales, channel sales, the lot. But whilst I was doing that, very much realized that I enjoyed the part the most where I got to help the team and set up structures and processes and help develop others and support them on their journey. So that's kind of how I rolled into the sales development leadership
Yeah,
role.
yeah, yeah, great. And then let's start with sales development leadership. It's not for everybody. What are maybe for you some key aspects that people should be doing right in order to be a good sales dev leader?
Um, I think there's many aspects that you need to do well, which makes this such an interesting role, right? So there's
Hmm.
definitely the people aspect.
Yeah.
So you have to be very personal and emphatic and so on to really build a bond with your team to know how they tick, right, and how they
Hmm.
do their best and what it is that they're working towards in their career, so that you can support them to grow on that side. So that's one of the bits. But another one that's very important, I always like describe myself a little bit as that spider in the web, right? As an SDR leader, you need to be involved with every part of the organization. So you need to be
Hmm.
very much involved with marketing, very well aligned with the sales organization, probably very close to your revenue operations side as well, right? So there's so many parts of the org that you need to be properly aligned with if you want to make sure that all the effort that your team is making is actually being put to the right use and getting the right results.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You said a couple of very interesting things. I want to go a little bit deeper in. Because when you look at sales development, a lot of the people is their first role.
Yeah.
And I think it is very important to build that right framework and to make them feel, first of all, welcoming. Because in my experiences, when you work in high growth environments, the train goes really fast and we don't really know how fast the train can go. But then you see the shock when somebody joins that fast moving train. So what are maybe for you some pointers to say, okay, listen, this is the right environment to, first of all, lead, but also bring a new hire on board?
I think it does depend a little bit on your organization whether you want to have like the absolute rookies. I would say as your SDRs. Some organizations are better suited for that than others.
Hmm.
But definitely, it's one of the roles where you will develop so many skills that you can use in any other role going forward. Right? It doesn't mean that if you start as an SDR, you will always become an AE after that.
Hmm.
But you will definitely figure out what your strong points are and what you do and you do not like about talking to prospects or customers or anything in between. And that's definitely something that you need to support them on. So an onboarding program and plan is so important because you can't just throw them at the deep end and go, well, good luck, here's the list, here's the phone, and go for it.
Yeah.
There needs to be a lot more structure than that. And it's genuinely very important to have leadership in place that can like hold their hand a little bit in the beginning to make sure that you know like what are they good at, what are they not, where are the gaps that we can help them with,
Yeah.
so that they feel confident picking up the phone and start talking to prospects.
Yeah, yeah, and I also think not just for the new hires, but also sales dev in general. You mentioned the right point of interfacing with sales, with the revenue side, with marketing. Um, how do you facilitate this? First of all, as a sales dev department, but then also as the sales dev leader.
I think as a sales dev leader, you need to make sure you have regular catch ups with all the relevant people in that organization, preferably in combination, so that you can make sure that everyone is talking about the same things and working towards the same goal. And then it's on like a one level below, very important that the SDRs and their day to day managers talk to the AEs, right, that they work with. So whoever AEs you're aligned with, to have weekly or twice weekly meetings, like what are we doing, how are we approaching this, why, and what messaging, and what are the results, how are we like slightly changing things. That is just so important. There's no longer a time that an AE can come with a list of like 500 accounts and say to the SDR, good luck in the next 6 months and I'll see you when it's done, right? That's just not how it's going anymore. It's like the pods that you need, right? With like marketing, AE, maybe even an SE and the SDR to make sure that everyone does their bit, right? It's definitely more of a team sport now.
Yeah, definitely a team, and not just a top-down relationship that some people used to have with AE who is going to say to the SDR how things are going to run. It's really the collaborative effort, and I've also seen it. The best running teams are the ones that are like in a tandem, working together in team, together with marketing, the sales and so forth. So yeah, definitely. And then as a sales dev person, you're often okay. This is your book of business. Start calling. We're going to start measuring you. So for me, a metric is just a dumb number. How do you go about going beyond that number, beyond the metrics?
Very often asking why, right? Like depending on what they come with. So if they come with a list of accounts, like why these accounts and not other accounts? Do these accounts, are they a better ICP? Do they show certain intent signals? What is it that we are seeing to make me go and work on these ones and not on others? And then it's very much, okay, so what is the goal of like the companies, like the revenue number? Then break that down top down, right? So if you need this much revenue, how many opportunities is that? What's your close rate? So how many opportunities do we need to generate for you to win enough? And then kind of seeing if that number matches up in the sense of, can we as an SDR or do that much? Because it's one thing to say, well, we need 100 opportunities every month from you guys. But if we can't generate that much, even though we would be working like full speed, top notch, and have amazing conversion rates, then obviously there's a little bit of a misalignment and something needs to give, right? So it's very much no longer the activity metrics that I find are important. Is really very much the outcome. And it's a little bit more outside of our control, right? Which is why SDR leadership aligning with the sales organization as to what the results are and what they find good, right? What is good? What is qualified? Is very, very important because, I mean, all those years ago when I started, they always told me, oh, it's just a numbers game, right? As long as you make enough calls, the opportunities will come, right? And that's just not the case anymore. Obviously, still, if you only make one call a day, you're not going to make, book more than one meeting a day. So you need to run the volume, but it's no longer that just quantity is going to get you over the line. It's very much about quality and being strategic and clever about where you put your efforts.
Yeah, and when you say quality, it makes me think about some previous conversations that I had. And actually, I mentioned also on LinkedIn is that this year, 2024, it should be the year of quality over quantity, especially now with AI coming. And I think that's very important. And what you said in prior to the recording is that for you, it's important to understand that why you're doing what you are doing, to really go beyond, as you said, the numbers and going then deeper into the conversation and to looking at those conversions, as you said. In addition, on the segmentation, what is your input? How do you see your role in influencing the organization to go into a certain segment of the market?
I'm not necessarily sure that it's always my role to like push them into a certain segment, but it's definitely the discussions with the revenue operations team and with the sales team to go, where do we see the most success? Where are we winning our deals? And if it just turns out that we win a lot more deals in segment A versus segment B, why would we ask the SDRs to put all their efforts into segment B, rather go into segment A and expand on that, right? As long as that's big enough a market to kind of sustain things. Because I think it's always with AEs and maybe with sales orgs, they always want to win all the Coca-Colas, I say, right? Like that's the ones you're like, oh, that's the one I want to go win. Why? do they have a need for our product? Why would they even consider us? Like, you can go after it, but is there a benefit, right? Rather go after maybe slightly less sexy sounding businesses that have a genuine need for what we can solve for them, and then those you're gonna win.
Yeah. And I was also thinking about what you previously said. You have your book of business. We go after these brands. But then a lot of these brands are in the unaware stage, and people might think, okay, this is a marketing role to warm them up, to nurture them, or whatever. I have a different opinion about this because I feel that sales and sales dev definitely can create awareness within a segment of organizations. How do you go about this?
Um, Twofold, I would say. I mean, if they're too cold, I agree that like marketing should probably be doing what they do best, right? Is
Yeah.
and to generate awareness and so on. However, once we pinpoint specific personas in specific parts of that business that we feel we can genuinely offer some value to, it's about the sales development organization becoming demand generation, right? It's like educating them on all the bits that they weren't aware that we can solve for them, right? So rather than just wait for people to go, oh, sorry, I've got a problem. Can I please buy your product to solve this problem? I mean, that's 1% of the time that happens. So it's all about educating people like, do you know that there's this technology now that could potentially solve X, Y, and Z? And they go, ooh, blimey. I didn't realize that, but I've got that problem. So maybe this is something I want to look into. And it takes longer. That is why outbound is a long process, right? And it's not oh, I'm doing outbound now. Within 2 weeks, I'll see all these opportunities coming in, because it's not.
Yeah.
It's very much a long-term educational, consultative relationship that you need to build up. And then at some point, people go, oh, wait, now I'm ready to go and have this
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah, and I also see the role itself of SDRN. We spoke about it's no longer the volume. At the same time, research is becoming very important. It's rather than having the same storytelling to everybody. There are a bunch of different things that you can do with regards to intent, with regards to trigger. We go a bit deeper into this later. How do you, because I'm pretty sure that the spirits are not there yet in all the organizations, how do you persuade senior leadership then about, okay, we need more research efforts to have a more resounding reason to contact, rather than just having these big volume on activity levels?
Well, I think luckily most sales leadership is waking up to the reality of needing to personalize and tailor make your outreach a lot more than we have in the past. And how that research needs to be done is always then the discussion, right? Whether you have a separate team for that, whether you have specific tools for that, or whether you just hope that your SDR is really, really good in their job and will be able to do all of that themselves. But you're right. I mean, it's so important that you tailor the messaging to the customer and the persona and the situation that you're in, etc., because the generic messaging is just not hitting home anymore. And I think that's the big shift that the SDR organizations everywhere are going through right now. And I hear it from so many of my peers as well. It's like, yeah, we really need to make sure that we focus. But then it's the decisions to make, as in, when are we going to do that? Do you start personalizing from day one, step one, the very first time? Or is that also not worth your time? Do you need to warm them up with some more generic educational messaging first before you then say, oh, actually they've been opening this, so now I'm going to personalize it? Or is it that it's that balance, that you need to find? Because spending an hour on every single email to tailor it specifically to everybody and then not getting anything back is also a waste of your time. So it's so very important to find the right balance in that.
Yeah, and it's definitely not one size fits all. Because you have the cold outreach, then you have the lukewarm outreach, and then you have the warmer outreach. And in around this, you have then trigger events. How do you see working with trigger events and defining trigger events versus then reaching out cold, but knowing that you can solve their pain?
It's it's like the all discussion right now. Like what is inbound, what is outbound? That's kind of where that comes, right? Because in the various organizations that I've seen on the inside, even that is not a given that it's the same every time, right? So what's an inbound lead? What's an outbound lead? Like proper inbound is a hand raiser, someone who goes, please contact me, I need you, right?
Yeah.
Or someone who filled out that form to say, I need more information now, please. That is proper inbound. Someone who downloaded a white paper somewhere, you shouldn't classify that as like an actual hot inbound lead that needs the same type of attention, because
Yeah,
it can just be for educational purposes. He might have been asked by his boss to download that, and it's completely not the right person to talk to, right?
yeah.
It's that one should be seen as an intent signal rather than anything else.
At the same time, it also creates a lot of friction of, okay, who brought this MQL while the AE or the SDR was talking to somebody else within the same organization. So that's why you said previously, the collaboration becomes absolutely critical. We need to work on the same goals rather than, okay, I need to have my MQL then transfer to SQL and create that whole serial chain. It's no longer like this.
No, absolutely. And I think one of the things I always try to get home with my teams is like, it's not like I have a person as a lead and that is the one person I'm going to be talking to. That's just not how you should be doing your outreach. Like, if it's a person, fine. Is that the right person? Do we need to find their colleagues, their bosses, their bosses' bosses? Maybe something's going on in that company, so you need to go after that company instead of that one person, right? So it's more of a signal rather than just as an SDR dumbly working your way through lists of people that have clicked on something and then just hoping that they'll respond.
Yeah, makes me think actually because about something else. I mean, a little side jump. Because you have people that say, okay, listen, first I go in above the line with the decision makers, with the C levels, and others say, okay, first I'm going a bit below the line or more on the tactical level to either garner some information or have an introduction from bottom to top. What is according to your experience, a go-to method? I'm not going to say the best method because what is for you the go-to method?
I've seen both work, but it really very much depends on how you align that with sales. As in, what are they willing to do and how do they feel they can create the opportunities in the best way? Because I see it as SDRs get our foot in the door, right? We get our seller in front of someone, and then it's the AE who needs to do their magic and create an opportunity out of nothing, right? And you need to do that by making them aware of the fact they have a problem that needs solving. And depending on the product that you're selling, depending on like how your sales cycle is set up, you want to do that top down or bottom up or both, right? And sometimes I would always recommend to go top down first if you can, not too high up, but at least go like the director level, the ones that can make the decisions, right? But that's hard, and they are very busy and they're inundated with messages, etc., etc. So in addition to that, not instead of, but in addition to that, you want to go and find some champions in their field, so to say, to make sure that you can get some more details that you can then use to tailor the messaging to either the C level, the director level, and so on. So it depends whether you discuss with your AE that you say, okay, I'll go from the bottom, you go from the top, or I'll go from the bottom first to get the intel, and then we'll use that to go a higher level up, etc., etc. There's ways of going about it. I don't think there's necessarily one best manner of doing it. It probably depends on anything like the style, the messaging, the product, etc. But it is something that people need to be very aware of and be testing, right? Try the different ways of doing it.
Yeah, definitely. I 100% agree. I mean, you have the different personalities from people, they just are not accessible because they're maybe way too high up and then you need to be introduced, and maybe different cultures. So there's a lot of things. So there's not right answer there. I just wanted to know your experience and your opinion on this. When you go back to the collaboration of the different pods, do you prefer working in a regional pod? Do you prefer working in campaign-based pods? What is your ideal setup?
I would say it depends a little bit where you're based. If it's America versus EMEA, for instance,
Yeah.
right? But if like me being based in EMEA, I would definitely say regional specific because of cultural differences, language differences, and all of that kind of stuff, right? And within a regional territory, you can split it in verticals, right? Like healthcare or finance and stuff like that. If that's how big your organization is, that you want to kind of break it down, such. But I would definitely say do it regional, because even in America, I mean, it would be like this southern states are different from like New York and so on. So it's just a completely different way of approaching things. And I think that is always important to take into account. And an AE who covers that territory will know best how to do that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. And so let us say somebody starts as an SDR, has done the onboarding, is an AE, and then what is then the real start as an SDR to do their work together with the AE? Do you see them as ideally setting up campaigns together? Do they need to be first better into certain sectors they will focus? What is that like your way?
Again, will depend on the type of organization and the type of territory they're covering, of course. But it would probably be like, okay, what's the goal for the AE, right? Where are his accounts? Does he have mostly customers, or does he also have net new fields that he wants to break into? And are they geared around one vertical, or is it anywhere and everything? And we just need to get the messaging right. And then it's about breaking it down and making sure you keep it contained, because you can't give an SDR list like potentially these 300 accounts and go for it. You need to kind of make sure, like, are they all based in the same area of the country, the same city? Are they all in the same vertical? And then tailor your messaging around that. Like, okay, now we're going to go after, I don't know, every single healthcare organization in London. And then be very specific and targeted, and then see how that goes. And then work from there. Rather than just send an SDR of a bit of this, bit of that, bit of that. Because it's so hard to focus and to see what's working and what's not. And yes, we can automate a lot, but that's not the quality that you're then looking for when you're doing that pod specific outreach, I would say.
Yeah. Let's go a bit deeper into the automation later. Before this, I want to ask the difference between mid-market SDR versus enterprise market SDR. Because if you look at the mid-market SDR, you have often, that the SDR will also do the demo or not at all. While in an enterprise, it might be much more going onto the research, mapping the organization, and so forth. So how do you see those models evolving in the coming years?
Well, it's interesting that you're saying that you're seeing the mid-market SDRs doing the demos. I've not seen that at all in my past part of the organizations. Also because sometimes a product doesn't have a demo, right? So that's that's another thing. But I think one of the main differences is that very often in the mid-market and the SMB type of the organizations are the majority of the leads that come in, because there's a bigger volume and people are a little bit more trigger happy on the things to fill out. So very often you see those SDRs can live more of inbound, as we say, right? And they do need to do a little less strategic outbound. But the organizations are slightly smaller. Sometimes the deals are just slightly smaller, which makes it easier for the SDR to maybe take it further down the line. That's why I always find it interesting to see if it's possible to build an SDR organization such that once they get a little bit more experience, they can try to close some of those smaller deals, because you would want them to practice those muscles on the smaller accounts and not necessarily on the biggest enterprise account you got, right? So that's definitely a thing. So from what I've seen, it's usually just a little bit more high volume in the mid-market and the SMB versus the enterprise. And it goes just a bit quicker.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean it's easier. And it also doesn't necessarily mean you should always put your least experienced SDRs in the mid-market versus your more experienced ones in enterprise. It really depends on how you set that organization up and on what you want your SDRs to do. Because indeed, if you want them to take an opportunity further down the pipeline funnel, they need to know what they're doing.
Yeah, and this is why so when I was speaking about the demos, it's not a full blown demo. This would take way too far, and that's not even a good way to approach sales, right? So you just want to give them a bit of the piece what I want to hear and what I want to see. But I'm definitely right, because for me, closing is a completely different way than opening doors. It's a different skill set,
Yeah.
and this is also where I see that some SDRs that move into AE positions, they struggle.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that I've always done is when you look into the qualification criteria of what type of meetings are we booking are different for enterprise versus mid-market and SMB. Usually because you want to just put that little bit of extra qualification on top when it's SMB and mid-market due to the volume that you got and the fact that you can kind of work your way through that. Whereas sometimes I say, look, if you can get me a meeting with the CIO of, well, there I go, Coca-Cola. If he wants to talk about the weather, I don't care. Book it, right? Don't qualify anything. Just get me in that room. And that is the deal you need to make with the sales organization. Like, what do you want? If I can get you in here, what information do you want from me? Is it fine if you just want to talk sports, or do we need to know this and that and that and that? And that's kind of how you can do it. And you can then shift gears, I would say, depending on how much pipeline your reps need. If the AEs are completely overwhelmed and go, oh, I've got too much work already and my pipeline is amazing and I'm going to hit my number and I'm fine, you can really start to up the need of the qualification questions to only give them the top stuff. Whereas if they're sitting there twiddling their thumbs going, oh my goodness, I need anything, please just let me talk to people, then you can drop the bar in a way and just get them in front of the prospects again.
Yeah, and I was thinking about how many high growth companies are looking at this. They're often okay, just so many meetings need to be booked, this. But as you said, it's first of all the context, it's situation, and I like that you agree on adjusting the messaging on depending the who and the what and the why, rather than okay, this is the amount of meetings that we need to bring. Because this obviously does not work. And that's very good because I'm pretty analytical on the one side, and you can, in the enthusiasm of the high growth, say, okay, this is what we need to achieve, but then you probably get a lot of pushback from the people on the floor.
Well, yeah, because it's very easy to, as an SDR organization, to hit your meeting number. Anyone would want to have a meeting, even if there's nothing going on. But that's not what is then going to be very valuable, because then you look at like, okay, what percentage of my meetings ended up being genuine pipeline? Painful. And what of that pipeline actually ended being closed one? Oh, embarrassing, right? So that's why that's important. So and then even when it's about finding opportunities, like, are we going to count one license of something? Is that an opportunity? Are we going to reward you for that just as well as we reward you for 1,000 license opportunity, right? So there's definitely parameters that can be set depending on the needs of the business.
Yeah, and then we go back to the close collaboration between sales, marketing, SDR, CS even. The traditional model that is broken from MQL to SQL and so forth. When we look then at commissioning, at incentives, do you see then more and more the companies evolving into one revenue goal, one target, or how do you see this evolving?
Yes and no. I mean, I know a lot of people want SDR organizations to be tied to the revenue because it makes sense, right? They go, well, that gives you skin in the game. But it is so far removed of the day-to-day of what the SDR can control that I'm always pushing back massively when people try to do that. Because as an SDR, you can do the most brilliant work, and if your AE is not good at their job, that means you're not going to get paid, right? And that's just wrong. Also, with all the turnover of AEs to try to tie people to things, and you tie them to a region and they're one of 10, it gets really, really complicated. So if you want to do that, I would say do it as like a bonus on top rather than as a part of the actual commission plan. I've had setups where SDRs would get paid a certain amount or a certain percentage of closed won deals. Gives them the interest in it. You can tie certain super strategic reps to a part of the revenue of their very limited strategic patch, so to say, that they're working on, if that's possible. But in general, I would always recommend to tie the SDRs to opportunities in pipeline. So like the step beyond the meeting. It can be meeting plus, so you can measure them on both. Just meetings, I think, is a little bit too loose, I would say, unless you really tie that down with proper criteria in the background. But otherwise, definitely, okay, I expect if you book, I don't know, 15 meetings, that 10 of those actually land in pipeline, right? Like a few stages further, and then make sure that they're comped on that.
Yeah, and then to play a bit the devil's advocate on this, because there are other people saying, okay, CS should also be involved if we will accept this deal into pipeline as a project. So then we have really three parties involved into getting deals into pipeline.
As long as it's not the same deal, you're not double paying, are you? So, I mean, very often the SDR organization are finding net new opportunities. So that's the CS isn't involved because they're not members yet. So that's an easy one. And then when it's about finding expansion deals, right? So work with your customer to find other things. It's really about tracking, like who had this discussion and who found it. So
Yeah, I was talking about new deals. So that's so that because CS is obviously for retention and growth. But on the retention side, if you know that this client might churn within 12 months, and we won't accept this deal, we won't qualify it, so it will never enter the pipeline. So in that sense, it would negatively impact the effort of the SDR.
I've not run into that, to be fair.
Yeah. So that's right. So the whole ref org is evolving. So you have different models right now there. So, but it's also just something to think about, to take into account when you
Yet
think about the
again, another
collaboration.
sign of how important it is to be talking to every single part of the organization. I mean, I've had SDR organizations that were specifically told not to talk to customers. Like, we only go after net new. Let the AEs and customer success deal with all the customers that need to like not churn and expand and all of that. And we will only get involved if we're very specifically asked, but not otherwise.
Yeah, great. Catherine, we come at the end of the podcast. It went really fast. I do have one more question.
Okay.
Around AI, how do you see the role of AI in the role of SDRs the coming 12 months, 24 months?
I think it's going to be helping SDRs. I don't think it's going to be replacing SDRs. I want to be very specific on that because, again, that is going to be detriment to the quality that we've been talking about. You can always see when AI is writing something. I think they're going to be tools, AI tools, that are going to be helping the SDRs do their research, right? To make it a lot quicker to find out background information about companies and personas and people that they're reaching out to. Suggesting specific messaging, checking ways of writing things, etc. AI to help you practice your calling, your pitch, etc. So is it going to be beneficial? Absolutely. Are there way too many tools right now to figure out what's what? And absolutely, right? It's going to be good. But I don't think there's any way, shape, or form that AI is going to take over the SDR role. Specifically not the more experienced, strategic, outbound way of it. AI can take up the automatic follow-up if someone does a form fill or something along those lines, right? That's the volume stuff potentially can be done, but not anything different. But I'm excited.
Yeah.
Very cool to see what those things can do.
Yeah, I agree. It will help the work of SDRs. It will make good SDRs even better. And for me, if you look at chatbots, if you look at automation, it makes it very transactional. The value is very low, while human interactions is much more value driven. So it gives them the SDR the opportunity to be even more value driven than they are today. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Cool, Catherine. I had a great time talking to you about sales development. Thank you so much. Where can people get in contact with you?
I would say on my LinkedIn. Just connect with me there, and I always like having a chat. That's for sure.
Brilliant. Thanks for the information and have a nice day.
All right. Thank you very much. Bye.
See ya.